Welcome back to Life and Surround. I'm your host, Mike Vieira. Today's album, pleased to have the opportunity to have heard this, to have experienced it, and to be reviewing it. This is one of those surprises in that the majority of multi-channel music that's being put out these days, because I think it's where the money is, are remixes of classic albums. And this is a classic band, but it's a brand new album, and they chose to adorn it with a 5.1 mix. This is The Mission by Styx. And I think this is a pretty cool record. I have definitely had my opinion challenged plenty by Styx fans, and I will admit that I'm not as in touch with their classic albums as many people might be, but I am familiar with The Grand Illusion, Crystal Ball, and stuff like that, as well as a bit of their later stuff. So I have a pretty good sense of Styx. I definitely have heard the radio staples plenty, Renegade. So in my opinion, this album, The Mission, feels a lot like a classic Styx recording. They are rocking similar keyboard, guitar, vocal overdub motifs. I don't think they're trying to rehash their classic formulas by any stretch. These songs feel fresh to me. I would just say that this is instantly identifiable as Styx, even though there's no Dennis DeYoung on the record. I think everybody's just happier that way at this point. This group is mostly led by Tommy Shaw, I would say. But anyway, they had a special 5.1 listening party for this album. They go into it somewhat extensively in the bonus content on the Blu-ray. I love that this is issued in Blu-ray. That is my favorite multi-channel, optical, physical disc format. So there it is. And, I love that Styx took a chance and wrote a concept album and then stuck with it, pulled off the concept. There we go. So this album is about a mission to Mars as kind of a waypoint to push further off into the solar system and then out into the rest of our galaxy to explore the heavens for the sake of mankind. So from start to finish, I find the story fun, I find it engaging, I find it relatively easy to follow, kind of like how Rush did with 2112, sprinkled throughout the liner notes. You get little snippets of story. I think they really nailed this overall package. You get a CD, which I like so that I can listen to it in the car. You get a Blu-ray, which I love because I can put on high resolution 5.1. They went ahead and created like this document establishing the fictitious program that's sending this spaceship out on its mission. Like I said, you get little snippets of story, just little brief snatches that you can read. Certainly in the time that it takes to listen to a particular song, you can have read this snippet and still focus on the music quite a bit. Some rather touching songs. Like, I just spent a year overseas in the military, and I remember when the single Radio Silence came out. Man, it had an emotional impact. Because I know what it's like when it's tough to be able to communicate with your loved ones back home and they don't know what you're going through or if you have survived. So when Radio Silence came out, man, I was feeling my feels. It really hit me in a good spot. It's got great guitar work, it's got great melodies, it's very memorable. Yeah, looking through the titles of these songs, Gone, 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 100 Million Miles from Home, Locomotive, Radio Silence, Red Storm, The Outpost, Mission to Mars. I mean, I find myself, remembering readily most of it. So it's catchy, it's well written, it's got hooks. And, I've only heard this album maybe 10 times. So, it definitely sucks you in pretty quickly. I find it enjoyable. I like the writing, I like the singing, the guitar playing, the keyboard flourishes. Let's talk about the mix. Some people do not love this mix. And Styx are pretty upfront about how they mixed this record and what their philosophy was and why they did what they did. Basically, what you get is a very tight sweet spot with this mix because they, I think, wanted to simulate what it's like to put on an album through headphones and really be immersed that way. So there are definitely discrete elements both up in the fronts and in the rears or the surrounds beside you or behind you. But there are also many elements of this record that are mixed sort of to the middle of the room. So if stereo can have a phantom center just on that x-axis, surround can have phantom centers along that y-axis and then pushing left and right as well. So they chose not to just hard pan elements to the four primary channels, but they have used the surround scape, I think, with more subtlety. And so you do have, for instance, drums more or less out in the middle of the room. And so some people have complained that this causes a very picky, a very finicky sweet spot. Like you have to really be in the sweet spot to get the maximum surround effect from this album. And if you're sitting off to the side, you're going to lose a lot of the surround effect. So for me, that's not an issue. When I audition albums, particularly if I want to give a trustworthy review of the surround content, I usually plant my butt pretty close to the sweet spot. This album works for me. It's plenty discreet. It's even active and a bit aggressive about it. You get stuff swirling around the room. So I get where people are coming from. I just wanted to give that disclaimer that this definitely is not super hard-panned, crazy, aggressive, static mix. It is a mix that features some subtlety, and in my opinion, that just makes it way more engaging for me. Sometimes when stuff is just hard-panned, for me, I get used to that right away. And it's no big deal by the time you get to the second or third song. And this mix, I think, keeps you guessing. Lead vocals are liable to come from the surrounds just as much as from the fronts, as well as all kinds of important lead elements like guitars, keyboards, sound effects. They're coming at you from every which way, and like I said, sometimes actually actively panning around the room. So this is an album that really does it for me. This album really does it for me. The Mission by Styx. I'm gonna go make my vote. I'm over on quadrophonic.com. If you are into surround music and you're not on Quadrophonic Quad, please correct that. It is the best site on the internet about quadrophonic music. And I see from this blank voting ballot that I have not voted on the Mission by Styx. And I gotta tell you, so they recorded this in analog and they were very careful about the way they did their mixing, whether people loved their decisions or not. They were very methodical about it. This album sounds great. I think it was mixed great. I enjoy the content, and let me see. I enjoy the packaging. I enjoy the fact that they had like a 5.1 release party. I guess I'm saying I pretty much like everything about this album. The one caveat, I guess, is that Styx are just not a favorite band of mine, but I actually found my appreciation of them growing as a result of this release later in their career. How often does a band put out an album that really is super effective late in their career? Anthrax did it recently. I think their best two albums of their entire career are their latest two. But it's super rare, especially for rock acts. I think money and the trappings of success, touring schedules, management bending you over the barrel, drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, rock bands tend to fall apart. But Styx have stuck with it through the fearless leadership of Tommy Shaw. They've put out The Mission. And this album really does it for me. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm going to give this sucker a 10 out of 10. Even though there are people out there who think it's not as good as their classic stuff. And there are people out there who are not necessarily thrilled with the mix. I'm telling you, sit yourself in the sweet spot. And this is a fun mix that honors the content. I'm giving this a 10. I'm going to vote 10. There are some 10 votes, but I see mostly 9s and 8s. And I think that's fair. I think for reasons that, people have given. I'm just going to go ahead and say nostalgia is not a huge driving force for me when it comes to Styx. And this album simply does it for me. I like it. I plan on putting it on a lot. Particularly since I like the theme and they really went 100% with this concept. And I enjoy a good story about missions to Mars and beyond. So this review has been of The Mission by Styx. I recommend you support Styx and support the fact that they put out a new album with a 5.1 mix. And I'm telling you, I think you'll at least enjoy it some, maybe not as much as me. It's priced pretty affordably. So I think you have nothing to lose. If you're into surround music, or even if you just have a Blu-ray player and a home theater system set up for movies, like a basic 5.1 setup, and you see this at a store, go ahead and pick it up. Throw it on. It could be your gateway into multi-channel music. I think it's that good. So this has been another riveting edition of Life in Surround. I've reviewed The Mission by Styx. Highly recommended. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. And hope you've enjoyed this review. Please thumbs up, thumbs down, make nice or rude comments, subscribe, ring the notification bell, share this video. Help me get the love of the surround music hobby out there. And until next time, I just want to remind you, life is best lived in surround.